providing the Europeans buy them and send them to Ukraine, arming up Ukraine to make it at least an even fight does seem to be the new policy of the White House.
It's time for the Trump Dump, where we cross the pond to get the very latest news coming out of the White House, Washington and beyond. And this evening, our US assistant editor for The Times, David Charter, is with us. David, good evening to you.
Good afternoon from Washington, D.C.
It's lovely to have you with us. Let's pick up on the comments of the US Secretary of War, formerly the US Secretary of Defence, Pete Hegseth. He's met with fellow NATO defence ministers today, and he's warned that more firepower is coming for Ukraine.
If there's anything we've learned under President Trump, is the active application of peace through strength. Yes. You get peace when you are strong, not when you use strong words or wag your finger. You get it when you have strong and real capabilities that adversaries respect. And I believe that's what NATO is doing. I believe that's what the Pearl Initiative is. So our expectation today is that more countries donate even more, that they purchase even more to provide for Ukraine to bring that conflict to a peaceful conclusion.
Well, Estonia, Finland and Sweden have all pledged further funding for US weapons. But the main thing we're all waiting for is whether the US will provide Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, which will be a game changer. We understand that Donald Trump is thinking about it, David.
Yes, he said as much. He was musing about this earlier this week after the triumph of the end of the war in Gaza and the release of the hostages. And he's determined to make a week of it because he's invited President Zelensky to the White House on Friday, and where the main topic of discussion is likely to be these Tomahawk cruise missiles that Ukraine desperately wants to level the playing field with Russia, which has been using similar sorts of missiles throughout the entire war to target Ukraine. And of course, Ukraine isn't able to reach the launch sites of these missiles from 1,000 miles away or so. Up to 1,000 miles away, which the Tomahawk missiles can do. And what we've actually had today in Washington is a visit from the Ukrainian Prime Minister and a top advisor to Zelensky called Andriy Yermak. And they visited a couple of weapons suppliers, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, for talks about what could possibly happen in the future. Notably, Raytheon is the company that makes Tomahawks. It also makes Patriot defense systems, which is the other thing that Ukraine desperately says it needs to defend against these waves of not only missiles, but these waves of drone attacks that are coming out of Russia.
Interesting. OK, well, that could be significant. We also heard from Zelensky in his nightly address this evening. He talked about preparing for the White House on Friday. Everything is pivoted on that. I guess it depends whether Donald Trump wants a big splashy announcement on Friday or not, or whether he will remain reserved. I mean, look, there is no doubt that relations between Zelensky and Trump are, well, 1,000% better than the infamous White House showdown. Nearly a year ago.
We've had a visit, of course, of Zelensky since then.
Yeah.
In the follow-up to the Alaska summit, about 5 or 6 weeks ago now, when Trump met Putin in Alaska. And then, if you remember, on the Monday, European leaders and Zelensky came to the White House to discuss the next steps. This did not result in the three-way meeting that Trump wanted with Putin himself and Zelensky, because various obstacles were put in the way by Moscow. In fact, it was Putin who said, well, we can have the meeting in Moscow, but it never got any further than that because Zelensky refuses to go to Moscow. So that's where we are on trying to have a meeting to end the war. And since then, the logic of peace through strength, as set out by the War Secretary, Pete Hegseth, seems to have percolated the White House, and the change of approach is that they are now prepared to make arms available, providing the Europeans buy them.
Pay for them, yeah.
Directly. Providing the Europeans buy them and send them to Ukraine. arming up Ukraine to make it at least an even fight does seem to be the new policy of the White House.
Okay, I'm just going to bring our listeners a breaking line on the release of the fallen hostages by Hamas. We know that 2 more hostages have been returned this evening to Israel. And now Hamas are saying that it can't reach any more bodies. There was the incident last night of one of the bodies returned, not actually belonging to, not being that of an Israeli hostage, but instead of another body. And Hamas are now saying that's all they can locate in terms of hostage bodies for now. They'd need special equipment to recover any further bodies. So just to update our listeners, we of course had been expecting 28 in total. By my count, we've had, 20 or thereabouts, but still significant numbers remain in Gaza. And Hamas is saying they need special equipment to be able to reach those bodies. Let's talk about Donald Trump ramping up the pressure on China with you, David, if we can. David Charter, US Assistant Editor of The Times, with us. The Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the US and its allies will not be controlled by China.
We want to help China, not hurt it. If some in the Chinese government want to slow down the global economy through disappointing actions and through economic coercion, the Chinese economy will be hurt the most. And make no mistake, this is China versus the world. They have put these unacceptable export controls on the entire world. China is a command and control economy, and we and our allies will neither be commanded nor controlled.
Interesting. Okay. On all days, domestically here, David, I'm not sure if you've heard, but the UK has been on the receiving end of China's hostile actions. Those are the allegations of Dominic Cummings, former aide to Boris Johnson. Where will the US go in terms of tariffs?
Well, we did have a truce between the US and China over its trade war that's caused some degree of chaos in the markets, of course. And that truce was supposed to be resolved by November the 10th. They'd given themselves until then to settle their differences. However, a number of tit-for-tat measures seem to have started during these negotiations. And we've seen Trump posting on his Truth Social that he doesn't like the fact that China isn't buying any soybeans from America. They spent over $12 billion on soybeans last year, and they haven't spent 1 cent this year. In fact, they're buying them from Brazil and Argentina instead. Trump called that an economically hostile act yesterday and said that America would stop buying cooking oil from China, which brought crickets really from Beijing. And in fact, they have said they have actually planned a restriction on their rare earth minerals that can be bought by America and others. And that's what led to this extraordinary press conference, actually, where the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the Trade Representative Jameson Greer attempted to lay down the law to China and said it's China against the world. Well, the world was just thinking it's actually America against the world, because America was the one putting on the tariffs that had upset the global trading system. So take your pick, really. It's never been clearer, I think, that America is telling the world to choose America and China is telling the world to choose China. And it's very slowly coming to a head. We're expecting that Trump will meet President Xi of China at the end of the month at an ASEAN summit in Korea, in South Korea, at the end of the month. There's quite a lot resting on that now.
Okay, I'm going to go to a Democratic Congresswoman now, David, who was elected last month, thinks Republicans are trying to prevent her from casting the deciding vote on the release of the Epstein files. The Democrats remain stuck on 217 signatures and need 218 on a petition to overrule Speaker Mike Johnson, and secure a vote on the files. Who is this Congresswoman, and is she right?
Yeah, this is Adelita Grijalva. She was elected in Arizona on September the 23rd, and she hasn't been sworn in yet. And she says that's because she made it clear that she would be the final clinching vote on forcing the government to release the Epstein files, as you said. Mike Johnson, who's in charge of the House, he's the Republican House Speaker. He says he can't swear her in because there's a government shutdown, and then there's no other business apart from sorting out the shutdown. The Democrats think this is a fake reason for not bringing her on, because they say a couple of Republicans were sworn in under similar circumstances not that long ago, and once again, the Republicans actually might be shooting themselves in the foot here, because we're just seeing the Epstein situation slowly creeping back to center stage, where it just keeps coming back to haunt them and raising questions as to why exactly, if there is more material, why isn't it being released?
We'll leave it there for time, David. Thank you so much. Always so fascinating to hear from you. So much to talk about as well. David Charter is Assistant US Editor for The Times, and David's work is up at thetimes.com and in the paper on a near daily basis, as is that of the brilliant Times team over in the United States. David, good to speak to you. Thank you.